What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Draft Yoda, where we're data driven and prospect focused. I am Bill Workman, Draft Yoda himself, your favorite draft nerd's favorite draft nerd. Today, we're talking about something every college football fan argues about before the season even starts: the hot seat. Got 10 coaches under real pressure heading into 2026. Also got a wild card. And I have a feeling you're going to call me crazy on at least one of these, maybe a couple. But when I look at the direction of the programs, they deserve consideration. For each coach, we're looking at three things. Number one, last 3 years on the field. Number two, recruiting and roster momentum. And number three, what needs to happen in 2026 so that coach keep the heat from turning into a full flame and getting roasted. Let's get into it. Number 10, Shane Beamer, South Carolina. I'm starting with Shane Beamer because I don't think he's in immediate danger, but I do think the pressure is real. Last 3 seasons have really been a roller coaster. 2023, 5-7, 2024, 9-4, finished ranked, won some big games, and he earned the SEC Coach of the Year honors. And then 2025 happened and came back down. Remind everybody, it's hard at South Carolina to succeed. The recruiting has actually been pretty solid. As Beamer has recruited better than some of his predecessors. And the program has shown it can win big games under him. The issue is consistency. South Carolina fans have seen the ceiling. They know what a good team under Beamer looks like. Question is whether 2024 was the beginning of something or was it the outlier? Question we're going to have for each one of these is what happens, what can save them? And I think it's going to have to take 8 wins. South Carolina has to get back to 8-4, 9-3 for the heat to dissipate. Because if they turn in another 4, 5, 6 win season, this conversation changes quickly to, well, that was an outlier. These have been your consistent seasons. And can we do better? That's the question for Shane and the South Carolina hopeful. Next up, number 9, we got Bill O'Brien, Boston College. Bill O'Brien is interesting because this isn't a traditional hot seat yet. He's been at Boston. He hasn't been at Boston College long enough for it to be, full panic situation. But the pressure is building because expectations were set so high his first year. His first year, Boston College went 7-6. That's not a bad year for Boston College. That's a really good year. 2025, things got rougher. The program looked like it took a step back and, came back down to earth. Recruiting has been more developmental than explosive. It's looked like he's less interested in signing a top 15 class and more interested in building Boston College the old school way, with identity fits and developing players in a culture that he's trying to build. The issue is the old way isn't really going to last anymore. The ACC is getting deeper. Football is moving faster. Miami is loaded and continues to load up. SMU is able to spend money and get people in. Louisville and Georgia Tech are both dangerous teams. What happens if Boston College falls too far behind? Does the patience start running thin? What I think can save him is a bowl season. Got to get 6 wins or more. I'm not saying he needs to push for an ACC title or a championship game appearance, but if he shows that they're going to stay relegated to the bottom tier of the ACC, then year 3 becomes very uncomfortable, especially towards the end of it. Number 8, we have Dave Aranda from Baylor. Um, he is one of the strongest hot seat cases in college football. Because we haven't seen the peak. He's a coach that won the Big 12. Coach that went 12-2 in 2021, and honestly, he looked like one of the smartest defensive minds in the sport there for a minute. But since then, Baylor has been kind of stuck in neutral. Over the last 3 seasons, the Bears have struggled to find consistency. The program has made has had multiple losing seasons, and the identity's never fully returned. Recruiting hasn't been bad, but it's also not been good enough to cover up the on-field inconsistencies. At a certain point, you have so much talent that inconsistencies can kind of get blended in, but at Baylor, that's the problem. I don't think you need a top 5 recruiting class, but you do need a clear identity, and you need talent. Um, Baylor has often looked like a team searching for an identity. So what can save them? I think it's simple. Get a winning season. Simple as that. You pulled in DJ Lagway. If he looks decent and you put together a winning season, I think it pulls him through. Anything less, 5 wins or less, I think it becomes very difficult to justify bringing him back for another year. Number 7 on the list, Mike Locksley from Maryland. He's not under pressure because Maryland has invested more, recruited better, and still hasn't broken through in the Big Ten. The last 3 years tell the story. Maryland in 2023 went 8-5 and won a bowl game. Then they went 4-8 and 4-8. That's an issue. Maryland had momentum and it's disappeared. Recruiting, you had some really strong recruiting classes. 2026 class, strong, highlighted by some elite defensive line talent, which are higher level recruits than Maryland is used to getting. But the question is Maryland building towards something, or is Maryland just collecting enough talent to stay interesting without actually climbing the Big Ten? For him, I think it's less about wins and losses than it is about progress. I'm not saying he needs 10 wins to save his job. 6 wins, I think, does the trick. But he needs to show real momentum. He needs to show the movement. He needs to show some improvement of some kind. I think another 4-8 season really, puts a nail in the coffin and sends him packing. Number 6, you got Jeff Lebby. Mississippi State. Jeff's in a tough spot because Mississippi State is one of the hardest jobs in the SEC. That does matter. But results matter too. You can't go 2-10 and then 5-7. It's too many losses. The improvement matters, and the SEC does not care about moral victories. Lebby was hired to bring offensive structure and offensive explosiveness to Mississippi State. And at times you can see the vision on what it's supposed to look like. But the roster has a lot of major holes. And, when you're recruiting against Ole Miss, Alabama, Auburn, LSU, and the rest of the SEC in that footprint, it's always a fight. Lebby feels like he's a quarterback short from really making his offense hum, but, you got to find that quarterback and you got to hit on him. Otherwise, you're not going to be dangerous. You're just going to be standing in mud. So what saves him? It's a simple save. You went 2-10. You went 5-7. You got to have 6 wins. You got to get bowl eligible. Another 5-win season doesn't cut it. Honestly, if he can get 7 wins, that gives him a lot of breathing room. But you can't 3-4 wins, can't happen. You will be on the hot seat, and you will be gone pretty quickly. Speaking of being gone pretty quickly, Mike Norvell, number 5. Truly probably one of the biggest boomer bust names on this list, because not long ago, Florida State was undefeated in the regular season, winning the ACC, and was truly in the hunt for a college football playoff berth and a national championship. And then the injury happened, and everything kind of fell apart. You know, they went 13-1 and then 2-10, and then, you know, last year was just another disappointment for Florida State. The question is, you know, are you Florida State's savior, or are you on the hot seat? And it's becoming a lot more hot seat than savior. Recruiting has been uneven too, and that's an issue. At Florida State, you are in a hotbed of talent. I mean, the Florida-Georgia area is some of the most talented recruiting areas in the nation. And you have a national brand in Florida State. You know, so you've landed some talent, but, you know, high school recruiting has not consistently been what you focused on. You've looked into the portal, and you've swung and missed quite a bit on that portal. The problem, I think, is they got used to the portal. It helped with the peak. But when you miss in the portal, you show your floor. And that's the danger for him. So what can save him? A major rebound, obviously. Florida State can't be average. They're not a place where 6-6 ever will be acceptable. Norvell needs 8 wins. And realistically, he needs Florida State to look like Florida State again. If they are 8 wins where they're struggle wins, I don't think 8 wins even saves them. But if they're 8 wins and 6 of them, they come out and just put it on people, I think Norvell comes back next season. Norvell is one of those interesting cases where I think he could be gone before Halloween, or he could have an extension next year. And I don't really see an in-between for him. Very boom, very bust. Next person up on this is number 4, Luke Fickell from Wisconsin. Fickell is under pressure because Wisconsin hired him to modernize the program, and so far the results don't look that way. They look like they're going in the wrong direction, to be honest. 2023, you went 7-6. 2024, 5-7. 2025, 4-8. That's not good. You don't want to be losing wins every year. You want to be gaining them. And that's not the Wisconsin standard, you know? It's a program that's built on physicality, offensive line play, defensive line, and consistency. And under Fickell, it looks like Wisconsin can't really find their identity, you know? Recruiting started well. He had some good classes. But 2026, and we've yet to see any of his classes really turn into wins on the field for him. I think he needs 7 wins to cool things down. I think he needs 8 wins to really, you know, give him some breathing room. But another losing season, it's going to be hard to defend. At Wisconsin, it's a simple question. Are you building something, or did you break it and we've got to bring somebody else to fix it? That's the question. Hopefully they get an answer. Next up, probably going to catch some heat on this one, and that's fine. It's Lincoln Riley from USC. He is probably one of the biggest brand names on this hot seat list. And it sounds crazy, when you see how good his offense has been. But the issue is USC didn't hire Lincoln Riley to be interesting. They didn't hire Lincoln Riley to look good offensively. They hired him to win championships. And the last 3 years haven't met the standard. 2023 was disappointing. 2024 was underwhelming. 2025, 9-4, but they still haven't reached the levels that, they saw from Riley in Oklahoma. The reason for optimism for Lincoln Riley is his recruiting. USC has elite talent coming in. I don't know the exact number, but I think their USC draft class is in the top 10 this season. From 2026, I think it's in the top 10, if not the top 15. They've got a quarterback coming back who is talented. So the offense should be dangerous. The question is this just a year? Or is this a year where there's no more excuses about the move to Big Ten? So no more excuses about rebuilding a defense. There are no more excuses about roster transition. So I'll be honest. What will save him is a college football playoff appearance. That's the bar. That's what USC brought you here to do. You have to be competing for a championship. And while nine wins may be good at certain programs, that's not what USC wants. That's not what USC brought you here to do. You've got to make the college football playoffs. It's as simple as that for Lincoln Riley. Number 2, Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick is one of the weirdest hot seat conversations in the sport because it still feels strange that Bill Belichick is at North Carolina in the first place. And after year 1, it's looking strange on the field too. You go 4-8 in your first season. The offense struggles. The staff changeover is insane. The adjustment from the NFL to college football looks like it was harder than expected. To be fair, UNC is recruiting well. They signed a major 2026 class, and Belichick's NFL reputation is clearly holding up when he walks into living rooms and recruits. But it's simply just not the scheme when it comes to college football. There's recruiting, there's NIL, there's retention. You've got to build high school relationships. There's a portal. There's a lot of managing 18-year-olds and boosters at the same time. Belichick didn't have to do that in the NFL. So the question is, can the greatest NFL coach, probably of all time, build a college program? I don't know is the answer. I think what will save him is a bowl game. I think he has to get to a bowl game. Or I think at that point you really have to start discussing, is this the move that I thought it was for Bill Belichick? Anything less than 6 wins. And I think we see another adjustment period at North Carolina. For me, the number 1 hot seat, my number 1 guy on the hot seat is Dell McGee from Georgia State. And it's simple, results have not been good enough. 3-9 and 1-11 in 2 seasons. That's 4 wins in 2 seasons. It's a brutal start, And McGee came with a strong reputation as a recruiter and developer from Georgia, And to his credit, Georgia State did sign one of the better recruiting classes in the Sun Belt. But recruiting only buys you time if the wins follow. And so far they haven't. Georgia State is not under the assumption that they're going to be Alabama. Nobody's expecting that. But 1-11 is simply unacceptable. The program needs to be competitive. There needs to be a clear direction. And it needs to stop looking like the easiest win on the schedule for everybody that has them booked. What could save him? is real improvement. I think 4 wins gives him a chance to come back for another season. I think 6 wins really changes things for him. But another 2-win season, another 1-win season, he's out the door. Last up, we got a wild card for you, and you're going to call me Kooky Madookie for this one, and that's fine. But it's Dabo Swinney. Before you go ahead and lose your mind, I'm going to say Clemson is definitely not firing Dabo. It'd be ridiculous. It's one of the greatest coaches in modern college football. He's got national championships, ACC titles, NFL players that he's coached across the board. He built Clemson into a national power. And that's why the conversation matters. The standard no longer is 7-6 at Clemson. And you went 7-6 last year. Now, I give him credit. That's one of the worst seasons since Swinney's era. But for a school and a community that got used to being able to compete with Alabama's and the Ohio States of the world, you got to do better. Your recruiting is good. It's not great, but it's good. There's some NFL talent still on the roster. And that's part of the problem is you've got talent in the room, but results aren't showing. You know, I don't think he's on the same hot seat as Dell, McGee, or Luke Fickell, but it's a reputational hot seat. He needs to prove that Clemson can still be Clemson. And honestly, the only thing that can save him is a return to the ACC title race. You got to have 10 wins or better. You have to be in the consideration for the playoff. And that'll end the conversation. But you turn in another 7-win season, and my wild card seems less wild. It starts looking more. The question starts happening more of, did he lose the step? Is the game passed him by? So those are the 11 coaches on the hot seat heading into 2026. I want to hear from you. Did I miss anybody? Is there somebody on my list that you would take off? Who do you think is the first coach to lose their job? Drop it in the comments below. If you liked the video, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel, because we're going to continue to put in this work. I am Draft Yoda, Bill Workman, your favorite draft nerd's favorite draft nerd. And we'll see you guys next.